trade it either. It changed my life completely.
Listen to Ben Steele American on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeartRadio station. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. There's no real wrong way to get at us here, just different ways, maybe better ways in case of how you want to be able to then, well, see the program, see what we put on, as we already have Calvin Williams and Ida Beza Gardner chiming in over on the social media. It's one of their advantages, essentially, is that you can chime in throughout the progress of the show as long as you're on those platforms that allow it. Occasionally get tagged on things or you commented whatever over on Twitter, because that's kind of more how that works, including some interesting, if a little bit stretched, analyses of my personality and character, or wondering about other incidents that have happened here. You can, of course, do that. That's your prerogative. But we're putting it in all these different ways because making it so that y'all can get at us in whichever way works best for y'all and keep going with the discussion of having live local talk radio here in the Borderland and what matters to you, important in both ways. We also have John Hertz talking about the mayor of New York City, as I think came in the news update at the top of the hour there, having some issues with the way that the busing is happening, both to D.C. and NYC. Not exactly in order of precedence, but in either case, the second busload, if I'm not mistaken in my counting of that, or what I've seen so far anyway, mostly decrying the lack of coordination, but I think there's, in some of the response there, whether intended or not, I should hope cruelty isn't the point, but I got to admit, I'm getting maybe just a hint of schadenfreude from some of the responses to that response here, but we got a lot of stuff going on locally here when it comes to border security and immigration. Another stash house bust, another it's 16 pounds of drugs that were busted in a 16-year-old, or maybe it was a 17 pounds in a 16-year-old. I mean, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but the fact that it was a fentanyl and therefore, if not handled properly, could have killed everyone involved in that thing. Serious concerns abound here as that kind of activity does continue on here. Plus, also checking in on some of those Texas politics, some handicapping going on from many different outlets, as we're ever so slightly, just over 100 days out, or under 100 days out. Yeah, at this point, under 100 days out of that next election, both election day, of course, and then even before that, early voting going on. So checking in on that at what some of the possibilities, potentials, etc. are looking like, as well as some new petitions coming out here locally. And Calvin Williams saying that, of course, only the comments on the Facebook are the ones that matter here. It's the majority of them. I'll be perfectly honest with you, but in no means do we discount the other ones. John Hertz, not happy with the idea of lack of coordination, as commented on by again the busloads being delivered there to New York City, largely on the part of Texas government, Governor Greg Abbott's kind of program there. Though there have been some other, I think Arizona primarily, that has joined in, if same spirit, if not exactly the same kind of program there. But John Hertz going on forward, they're saying, are you joking? Do you think that the criminals check in before invading? Yeah, I mean, I think as a finer point, simply put, no. That's why I guess I'm maybe ever so slightly in those responding to that response, just ever so slight a bit of a schadenfreude. And then at least one other thing we will be talking about today as well. Again, some of those petitions that I was just mentioning, because as there's more analysis of some of the home valuations and appraisals probably continue going up, as well as some more of those taxing entity actions. Definitely a whole lot more focus on that here. Kelvin Williams making a correct point there. And New York is so bad, those being bused there didn't want to get off the bus. I think there were some other destinations being desired and being talked about there, but yeah, it's a complicated situation to say the least here. So more than a little bit of what we're talking about here today. So however you're chiming in with us or tuned into the show, you are more than welcome to. Of course, we'll have that phone line open a little bit later in the program, as we usually do. And John Hurt's still celebrating him not paying property taxes. Again, as long as you're doing that legally, I don't see an issue with it. If it's just like I've decided not to, I'm not saying there's not a debate to be had there on the issue. I'm just saying that tends to be without quite a lot of effort put into it. It doesn't work out that well for those in the past year. Anyway, point is, we got a lot to talk about here today. So however you're tuned in with us and all the many ways that are open and available to you, making sure we're up on all the pages here. And just as a quick programming note, in case anyone on our social media had any issues with some of our weekend programming, primarily the El Paso History Radio Show. I know we try not to cross-pollinate here, but felt it was mentionable because pages went a little bit haywire. Some things got posted where they wouldn't and didn't get posted where they should. So there's going to be another rebroadcast of that going on our social media, the correct El Paso history pages this evening here. So just as a slight side mention that we're bringing up a little into the program. But so let's dive into some of these issues and going on here, including those local cases and local situations. One of the things that has not been mentioned so far, or at least not in the news updates anyway, the fact that there have been another stash house found in central El Paso, Border Patrol agents finding 44 migrants and arresting a Mexican man in the process. Some of the pictures and this reporting in particular coming from our news partners over there at KFOX 14, saying that they assigned to the El Paso Station Anti-Smuggling Unit got the information regarding 3 properties in El Paso potentially being used there. The two locations near Alameda Avenue in North Carolina drives were found empty, and the third location near Geronimo and Trowbridge Drive. So, yep, central El Paso, and I guess on the way to the refinery there, if I'm thinking about my streets there correctly, resulted in the discovery of 44 migrants being kept at the house, one of which was 17 years old and a Mexican national, was taken into the custody with face charges under re-entry after removal. Is what it said there. Migrants from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Colombia, and they were medically screened and evaluate all the migrants found there, and some have been expelled under Title 42. Otherwise, some were taken to Central Processing Center to be processed under Title 8. And El Paso Sector Chief Patrol Agent Gloria Chavez saying that U.S. Border Patrol in the El Paso sector continues to disrupt dangerous human smuggling stash houses located throughout our border community. I want to thank the hardworking agents of the El Paso sector who rescued these migrants from the exploitive clutches of the transnational criminal organizations. I particularly appreciate some of that phrasing there, particularly the transnational criminal organizations, because it can be maybe sometimes easy to just kind of almost it's almost a euphemism, just the cartels. Like, I'm not saying anyone's saying that it's a nice, fluffy, cuddly kind of persona that comes along with that phrasing, but remembering what we're truly talking about here, and that we have classified organizations as terrorist organizations for less, honestly. I mean, given the amount of attacks that, well, haven't necessarily happened on this soil, but the activity and that what is funding elsewhere, yeah, transnational criminal organizations almost doesn't quite go far enough here. I'll say that here. I mean, seriously, the fact that this keeps happening, I mean, not that, again, immigration and border security, particularly the enforcement therein, has never exactly been static, but it feels like it's been even more of a moving target than usual lately because of all that goes into it. And the fact that, I mean, these stash houses, maybe I'm just not remembering clearly enough, and I'm going to be pretty sure, without having any specific data to point to here, that it's pretty much always been a feature in some way, shape, or form, but the absolute number of them, such as further pointed out by our news partners there, that during fiscal year 2022, Border Patrol agents in just the El Paso sector alone have located more than 186 stash houses, and the rescue or interception of more than 2,051 to be exact, migrants, according to Border Patrol here. And they do, of course, have a number if anyone wants to report suspicious activity, such as potentially these stash houses. If you're seeing a lot of people being brought in and then apparently not allowed to leave, might not be a bad idea. They do have that, you can report it anonymously by calling 1-800-635-2509. That number one more time, 1-800-635-2509. 835-2509. And yeah, it's pretty intense in our area. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone out there has a different recollection, I do not remember, or at any time within my lifetime, essentially, remember this coming up this often in our region. Because 186 during this fiscal year alone. To my understanding, we're still in this fiscal year. Like, this fiscal year isn't even over yet. Yeah, John Hurt saying anything south of I-10, maybe not. I mean, I know that they're looking for probably high traffic areas, so it might not be, but like just off the beaten path, perhaps, so that it wouldn't be too out of place for there to be a lot of traffic, but maybe not too many looky-loos and nosy neighbors, though I'm not necessarily they actually care about it that much. Because, I mean, these are the ones that have been secured and found, as much as, of course, if you don't know about it, you can't really estimate or give the numbers, but the idea that there are probably more out there remaining to be found does come as a level of concern there. Coming up into this next break, we didn't even get to the other part that I wanted to mention here about a significant bust, not necessarily in weight, but, well, the significance, particularly in fentanyl on its own. We'll get into more about that after this. First, already overdue for the first break of the hour here right now. You are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Whole lot more we'll get to, more comments, more than I've been able to even mention here, so we'll get into those comments and more of the stories, more of the things affecting us here in the Borderland after this break. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police are responding to a crash I-10 eastbound at the Wyoming Prospect exit and an accident reported Gateway Boulevard westbound at Geronimo. Got some busy stop-and-go traffic on Artcraft, both directions, but mainly eastbound from West Side Drive over to the 10 with 11-minute delays, and an injury accident Montwood Drive westbound east of Yarborough at Mosswood. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
If you fail to understand the single concept about money and tech, you're going to miss out on the biggest opportunity. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. I'm not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
If you've ever ordered food for work, you understand. It's different. There's just so much more at stake. Whether it's a meeting, a client call, or lunch with the office that has to arrive at the actual lunchtime, food for work has to work. That's why there's Easy Cater. Food that's on time and as ordered from over 82,000 restaurants. And if there's a problem, rare, you can reach someone in seconds.
Thank you for calling Easy Cater.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Probably the main one here. We got a lot of the comments coming in here, including someone, I know it's meant to be mean to me, but I can't help but laugh at this Pendy Joe Polk, who just looking at the profile picture, maybe has some similarities with a previously and potentially banned previous commenter, calling me that our porcine, no talent, limited vocabulary host succumbs to a similar fate and a better candidate is installed here. And yet you're still listening and tuning in. I have to point that out here. So what are you saying about your own entertainment choices there, my dude? In any case, a lot of other mildly productive comments, at least more productive anywhere, coming in here, including John Brazelton, not happy with the state of New Mexico in general, calling it a trashy state with a majority of the state as a stash house. I'm hoping you're not confusing necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't a strong possibility, but to make sure you're not conflating the movie like Sicario or things like that with it here. John Hertz saying that September 30th is the end of the fiscal year whenever it comes to the Border Patrol and those numbers being here. So probably coming up more. Monica Cervantes agreeing with the previous point there as well. And RJ saying they need to be careful with fentanyl nowadays. Years ago, a police officer in Dallas stuck his finger in the LSD and was never the same again. And yeah, I'm not saying that's a good circumstance, but at the very least would survive in this one, because that's the real difference with fentanyl and the major issue that it's so bad. Not that they're, again, not saying that, and therefore everything else is fine, good, dandy, sunshine and daisies. But the fact that even a minuscule amount, that's why I'm saying, not even necessarily with hyperbole, that, in the situation we're talking about here, a 16-year-old accused of smuggling 16 pounds of fentanyl at the Isleta port of entry, showing some of the pictures from Customs and Border Protection, showing a large package, not quite sure if it's in a Tupperware, Ziploc, wrapped in tinfoil for sure here, provided along with that. And coming through Isleta port of entry, along with the CBP officers encountering two individuals and stopped them, pulled them out, and found it with including screening by CBP canine and non-intrusive inspection X-ray, and multiple bundles throughout the vehicle. So that picture they provided there isn't even the only one, totaling about 16.44 pounds of fentanyl. And 16-year-old was turned over to authorities for prosecution, and the passenger of the vehicle, an 18-year-old citizen of Mexico, processed for expedited removal and returned to Mexico. But this has even been making some statewide, if not national news. I've been seeing this come out recently about this fentanyl bust, because again, we've had other like multi-100-pound busts of marijuana or even heroin to a lesser extent. But seriously, the fact that this much could have, I don't have the exact calculations noted to me about what that could do, but I could say pretty confidently that if that were to be got on someone, even just on the skin kind of thing, not quite the same thing as LSD, but very similarly, and there wasn't, say, Narcan immediately available or multiple doses of it, could have caused a lot of damage, if not death, of those handling it. So the fact that this was done safely is important, being kept off the streets, particularly, again, fentanyl is this insidious drug. I don't feel like I don't have to talk too much about it to those who know about it, but just in case there's someone out there who is unfamiliar with some of the stats, it has been among the number one causes of death in adults. I think the category is either 18 or 25 to the mid to late 40s, because that's how serious it is. And the fact that it keeps being imported and being smuggled in and things like this, and making these efforts and need to keep this enforcement going up. So the fact that there was 16 pounds of it is just the nuts part. And honestly, just looking at the picture, it looks pretty innocuous. I'm not sure if the pills themselves are looking like blue, definitely small and circular, or if the container itself is blue there. But they could look almost like anything. The fact that they can be put into almost any kind of generics that are trying to be essentially more bang for your buck, as opposed to, rat poison and other sawdust fillers. Just put in, a dash of fentanyl and you have got quite a lot more bang for your buck. And unfortunately, a whole lot more. Yeah. And RJ putting it, actually, they need to be careful with all drugs, considering they lace everything now with fentanyl. That's the real danger aspect of it, because again, I am just completely dispossessed of the mindset that would allow me to understand what the allure of this is, because seeing is that, I want that stuff that could maybe kill me. But as someone else has made the argument previously, the thing that I mean, it almost sounds like it is a bad joke is what it is. The idea, yeah, this stuff killed someone last week. You definitely want some of this. Like I don't even find myself anywhere involved in that kind of situation, but I guess that's appealing to maybe someone out there. Yeah. So the fact that much was captured and that much, I mean, as much as I appreciate the capture whenever it comes in, the fact that just probability speaking, there's probably more that is somehow making it through, even if in lesser amounts, continues to be incredibly concerning to a degree. It becomes kind of hard to really define because we don't even really know. The fact that something could look almost identical, maybe like a slight imperfection in just like the formation of the pill and why, it's probably a pretty important thing, as we've talked about previously. The idea sorry, some of the comments coming in as we have other discussions that continue going on our social media catch me by surprise sometimes. But the idea that we need to have more of the Narcan available in our community, because sure, there's a level of you get what you deserve when it comes to people taking part in illicit drugs or illicit trade. But the fact that this can even be put into otherwise innocuous stuff that, I went to some, off-brand, off-marketplace that seemed legitimate and ended up getting something that I thought looked just like an off-brand, standard painkiller, ibuprofen-looking substitute, and then could die from it. That's the real insidious nature of this and why we need to be prepared in this community and really any community that deals with this, which is pretty much all of them nowadays because of how pervasive this has and can be. Of course, having things like the Narcan and the training available for first responders, even for police, basic law enforcement beyond, say, the EMS units, because the E's, to my understanding, I've never actually been fully trained on it, but what I've read about it and what I've understood is that it can be very easily trained on how to properly administer it. It cannot cause adverse effects in the majority of cases where it, even if it is applied unnecessarily, except you've just lost the dose, is essentially the downside there, needs to be really focused on, and previously had pointed out that there were some deficiencies in the response and the responsiveness possible in our area here. So, yeah. RJ saying, that was his argument. Increase in drug sales for the dealer, but don't ask me to explain it. I don't get it either. Yeah, just even getting to that point here, like, sure, I guess saying, I got the real strong stuff, but getting as close to saying that, and you could die from it. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's like a subset of your consideration of people who go like bungee jumping and skydiving. But even then, they're also then usually pretty meticulous about the safety measures. So again, just nothing I'm able to figure out. And Kathy Codry saying on a similar concern, lollipops laced with fentanyl, entirely within the realm of possibility. I don't know, or at least have in front of me, any specific examples I could point to of that happening. But of course, the fact that it could, and only takes a maniac with the access to the supply, and the supply has not exactly been an issue so far here. Yeah. Anyway, already due for that next break right now. We'll get more into this, got a little bit further into it than I intended here, but gets me going a little bit and talking about that and just decrying the situations. But even further than that, of course, we've got elections less than 100 days away from Election Day, and even less than that from the start of early voting. So, important thing to talk about, checking in on some of those races, both statewide and, of course, those that we will be voting on here in the Borderland region, and what some of the regional handicapping is coming out on that. So all that and more coming up after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, taking those comments over on the social media, opening up those phone lines a little bit later in the show, as we do in any case. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. To an update on a story CBS4 on your side has been following for several days now. Las Cruces police say the man they believe to be behind a road rage shooting that injured a toddler has now been arrested and charged. Police tell CBS4 24-year-old Esteban Miguel Jimenez turned himself into police yesterday afternoon. Jimenez now faces a slew of charges, including 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He is accused of opening fire following a road rage altercation with the driver of a pickup truck at Amador and Valley Drive Friday afternoon. A 3-year-old girl in the backseat of this pickup was hit by the gunfire and is now recovering from her injuries. Remember, you can stay up to date with what's happening in our area by signing up for our CBS4 newsletter. It's easy and it's free, and we'll send it straight on over to your inbox. Just head to cbs4local.com/sign up to get started. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder border highway westbound to the 54 Gateway. In the Low Valley, the 10 eastbound has got some brief but heavy stop-and-go traffic, 5-minute delays between the Loop and Eastlake. Police are responding to a crash at Kenworthy and Trans Mountain and an injury accident Sun Valley Drive just east of the 54 Patriot. Take Kenworthy or Fairbanks there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Monsoon season continues with showers and storms in the forecast each and every afternoon. Expect a mostly cloudy sky tonight with a 40% chance for scattered showers and storms, with overnight lows settling into the lower to middle 70s by early tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a slight drop in our daytime highs, plus if this active pattern continues through the upcoming weekend. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Fall into autumn hiring with Indeed. Their all-in-one solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer. It can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Harley-Davidson is an iconic American brand with an iconic American backstory. To hear it, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those platforms here. As always, you can find us and chime in on those, opening up those phone lines here in just a bit. But in the meantime, a lot more comments coming in on the many subjects we're discussing today here as well, including Calvin Williams mentioning thunder and lightning with a light sprinkle in the far east. Did see those storm clouds gathering on our way in here today. Our John Browsden, rather, chiming in on that, saying, it must be coming my way. Dogs are sleeping at my feet, with Calvin Williams talking about that as well as some interesting other commentary coming in. Kathy Kodry mentioning the IRS going to hire over 80,000 agents to audit the working class, middle class also being very much a focus of what I've been seeing coming up on that, including a very interesting Fast Company article dated not too long before our show here today, saying no one likes audits, but more IRS agents could bring its workforce closer to historical norms. I'm not saying that bringing a workforce into historical norms is a bad thing, but maybe just not for the IRS. Just saying, because, like, sure, taxes are and paying people pay them, and people are cheating on them. That's one thing, but how much, I guess, is really needed whenever it comes to just ensuring compliance versus going into and looking at, well, everyone, because that gets a little more than a little bit weird, I'll say there. And hold on, more commentary on that thing here. Kevin Williams saying, Maria Kalman a little bit earlier saying that fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans 18 to 45, I think in the last full calendar year. Bear it that way for sure. And that fentanyl pills appear almost identical to the real pills. The last digit is usually different. Users won't know the difference. And Kevin Williams analogizing that to, let's play Russian roulette with a fully loaded revolver, or better yet, just a semi-auto. And Red China and John Browson saying that China's plan for doing away with certain portions of the American population, more than a little bit messed up in a lot of ways here. And more commentary about going after the middle class and businesses and things like that. Yeah, serious issues come along with it. So with those elections, again, less than 100 days out, according to, let me get it up here, vote.org, 91 days, 8 hours, 23 minutes, and 11 seconds before November 8th. Though, of course, as some of those other important election dates and timelines that you should be aware of, just to keep in mind here, that the last day to register to vote for the November 8th general election will be Monday, October 10th. With my relocation, I got to make sure I update my ID here. But then also the actual early voting begins Monday, October 24th, ends, of course, on the Friday, November 4th, and then general election Tuesday, November 8th. So just mark your calendars, make your plan, get ready to go vote. Unfortunately, some of those petitions will not be on, well, any of the petitions will be on any of the ballots that we have a petition to, that we have a chance to vote on here. Those are going to be moved to the off year elections, May. So not even the usual November date. So I guess maybe not be pushing at another full calendar year. Probably a good thing, but the fact that it can't be a part of it because of some of the number of petition signatures that have come in, including with that ground game Texas and the Sunrise El Paso one for the El Paso Climate Charter that we've talked about previously. But now there's another group that is now pushing, according to El Paso Matters, petition drive seeks voter approval requirement for UMC's $345 million bond issuance. Now, we've talked about this possibility, including with our news partners, specifically Estefania Seifert, with the, of course, investigative reporter with our news partners over at KFOX 14, on the idea of that potentially being a requirement that could, not by any means a requirement, to be put into place by county commissioners. Remains to be seen. We're still in that, I think, mid-September or early mid-September, like the second week of September, I want to say, is the countdown that we're still looking at for that possible and that potential. But now the Libre Initiative, again, according to El Paso Matters reporting on this, pushing for National Conservative Advocacy Organization, they're saying about it, that they are looking to do this, and that Carla Sierra, the group's grassroots advocacy director in El Paso, saying, quote, this petition is about a lack of transparency in allowing El Pasoans the opportunity for their voices to be heard in how they are taxed. The crux of the issue is that El Pasoans should decide how their hard-earned money is spent, and we were excluded from that conversation here. And there have been more meetings, of course, coming up on that, and including a quote here further from Ryan Milkey, a spokesperson for University Medical Center, saying, quote, our priority is to ensure that our community has an opportunity to get the facts about our proposal and significant benefits it will bring to our community. Our goal is to ensure we have the capacity to address our community's current health care needs. Again, that full article over there on elpasomatters.org. But there's a little bit more focus on it here and potential with it. So with those elections that are coming up here, again, there are going to be, some of the factors, including a county judge that is on the ballot with a actual challenger here, as opposed to simply a pass-through election. But some of the handicapping on that statewide, interesting to dive into, including a lot of analysis about the money particularly headed towards South Texas, Rio Grande Valley. a lot of focus. You may remember some focus on the seat for Henry Cuellar and that movement going on, but it's long been stated, at least in this election cycle, of being a focus for statewide conservatives and Republicans in general to focus on, well, dealing with that blue wall, as it's sometimes put forth whenever it comes to those border counties and communities, including a lot of money going on into Senate District 27 and a whole lot more, and other areas being focused on there. And even Dade Phelan, Speaker of the House, announcing they're jointly funding $360,000 worth of television buys for House District 118, again, in the very kind of similar area, and going into the San Antonio and Rio Grande Valley market. So there's a lot of focus on those here, but in some of those seats, such as Congressional District 28, looking at, again, the congressional districts as opposed to the state house districts. Some of the, like a lot of different handicapping going on there. Some of the ones we're looking at from our partners over at the Texas Association of Broadcasters, such as with 538 Cook Political Report, Sabato's Crystal Ball, University of Virginia Center for Politics, 270 to win, or even Inside Elections, putting a most of them have either a likely, solid, or leans are possibility, more than often than not, in the likely or solid for the governor's race. But in some of these other ones, ranging from everything from leaning, likely, D, particularly for Cuellar, but also a lot of them potentially toss-ups there. So in some of those, it still remains a lot of movement, but particularly in that governor's race, as much as the polling has showed, changes the numbers, they have varied a little bit, but there's never been a particular moment when a lead has been established in any other direction besides, of course, incumbent Governor Greg Abbott. And I think it would be long cautioned that's underestimating the governor and his political savvy and war chest, estimated in the tens of millions of dollars, around the mid-20s last time I saw it, if I'm not mistaken. Saying that doesn't matter would be one heck of a mistake. And even if there was, that last period where there was, I think, about a $3 million spread difference between the, well, O'Rourke campaign and that of Governor Greg Abbott, that's, I mean, is significant in its own right. Don't make a mistake about that either. But the overall trajectory hasn't remained changed that much, even if an interesting issue has somewhat come up within these governor's races of the impact of charter schools and the movement that has very much long been a focus of the Abbott administration, has been focusing on, ballots or charter possibilities, the vouchers, the phrase I'm actually looking for there, the vouchers and the school choice movement, very much something he has embraced. And that is something that apparently now is part of this whole statewide tour that is going on with Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke doing his tour up until right about before the election, honestly. Focused a lot on that because apparently it's seen as a wedge issue, which has long been the focus of much of these aspects of it here. Kevin Williams putting it pretty decently. Not sure if I like Governor Abbott or not, but I know I don't like anyone else running. I mean, there was a lot of controversy, of course, leading up to the primaries, and that's, as much as it was quelled, it was still very interesting to me that I cannot recall a piece of actual advertising coming out of the campaign at that point in time that actually even mentioned any of the opponents in the primary, that is. Definitely mentioned, you might have been totally blamed for thinking that it may have been a slight presidential race announcement because Biden was the primarily one mentioned in theirs, with some O'Rourke thrown in there. But if it was going to be one mention, it was usually Biden and not just O'Rourke. So interesting way that has been formulated. Pretty laser focus on the then general election opponents throughout the process. So I think that there might be more that share the sentiment there. Flock Jimenez chiming in saying Beto is wasting his time again. The network that was built out of the last statewide run he did, of course, challenging Texas Senator Ted Cruz in that race. It's an interesting one. I saw the documentary Running with Beto, which almost seems the way it was being written and being put together, the last act definitely felt like a letdown. Don't make any mistake about that. But the way it was kind of couched, both in that and then some of the other, statements around it, really, about, this wasn't really a loss. And I think a lot of the focus that happened in the interim between this and kind of the presidential election, that race that happened there, that primary, didn't really fit with the machine that has been built up in Texas. You may have heard some of it, and I get all the texts, I get all the emails, so I have maybe a better view on it than most on what exactly is being focused on there, because that machine that was built out of that whole visiting every Texas county effort, all of that never went away either. So that's why I'm still very focused on it. And while the polling and the other aspects of it are interesting, the handicapping, again, if people were to bet on this, but betting on politics just raises my hackles in a way I can't even describe. I don't think anyone actually is, though people do weird things when they're not in the limelight, that kind of a thing. It's possible, but I'm just saying that all of these pretty, in-depth national handicappers, and looking at this, putting them all as the very least likely, I'm not even sure there's anyone that's putting it anything less than likely. Essentially, the gradients go toss-up, leans, likely, or solid for whatever party you're talking about there. And everyone has, again, of those areas and outlets we mentioned, either likely or solid, not even a leans. I guess the only one is a Real Clear Politics has it as leans GOP, and Politico has it as likely GOP itself. So it's still looking pretty solidly for that. But, we'll have to talk more about that. Already due for that next break here right now. A lot more comments coming in that on our statewide politics here. I guess it's been a minute since we chimed in and checked in on that. So that seems like a good time as any to go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do. So if you want to get on the line and chime in there, some people already eager beavers on there, but still got some availability. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a stalled vehicle that's blocking the right shoulder border highway westbound of the 54 Gateway. In the Low Valley, the 10 eastbound has got some brief but heavy stop-and-go traffic, 5-minute delays between the Loop and East Lake. Police are responding to a crash at Kenworthy and Trans Mountain and an injury accident in Sun Valley Drive just east of the 54 Patriot. Take Kenworthy or Fairbanks there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, Sean Hannity here from my dear friends at Lone Star Transfer. I love these folks. You know, with all of us traveling so differently these days, timeshares, they're kind of becoming a thing of the past. Now, if you're stuck in one, you don't have to be. Our friends at Lone Star Transfer, they can help you. Now, with skyrocketing assessments and maintenance fees, still owning a timeshare is very risky. And for over a decade, Lone Star Transfer, they have successfully helped thousands and thousands of owners legally, permanently get out of their burdensome timeshare. They have an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Now, Lone Star Transfer is a family-owned company. They have earned their reputation for delivering first-class customer service. They're going to guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation, 833-594-0075. That's 833-594-0075 or online at lonestartransfer.com.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the Borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
If you fail to understand the single concept about money and tech, you're going to miss out on the biggest opportunity. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those. Here's Sean Gardner making a finer point here, saying that Robert Francis, referring to, of course, O'Rourke there, is wasting our time again as opposed to his. I mean, there's something to be said about here. And RJ saying might be having some issues with his YouTube today. Just digital percussive maintenance is the best way I found to make that work. Turn it off and turn it on again. It's because you can't quite hit the tubes that the internet is here. EFR over on the Twitch stream saying no bit off O'Dork. Sure, if that's what works for you. And I mean, this election isn't going to be ending anytime soon here. A little bit earlier saying John Brazelton saying that maybe the petition, the property tax petition, will scare the county judges to vote against the UMC fiasco. And Calvin Williams saying we remember hands across America. Maybe we should do a hands along the border. Honestly, I wouldn't be that opposed to it in terms of the idea of bringing additional focus to the issues here. Otherwise, I mean, even to El Pasoans, it can seem, unless you're really involved with the issues, it can seem, or in like, San Teresa area, parts of the Lower Valley, I think C5, if I'm remembering correctly, is kind of in those areas as well. Unless you're like directly impacted by it, it can seem like not a thing, like something that doesn't affect your life. So honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to such a thing. But let's get, I'll mention those phone lines are open. So let's get to some of those before we hit that next hour now. Full up at the moment, but if you want to try to get on, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Woohoo! All right. Right out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something. Right now, today, over the weekend, including, I was able to get to my gin mill at gas prices under $3.30. I don't hear anybody saying anything about that. Gee, nothing but a bunch of crickets. And my beer prices didn't go up. So what do you think of that? I still don't hear anything from all you conservatives out there saying anything about it. Crickets, 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 crickets. But here's what I want to say. This nut job that you people support, the Donito Tardoofus, gets out there on one of his rallies and says, hey, you know what? I'm being sued by I want to sue CNN because they lied. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Guess what? He wants your money to help pay for his lawsuit? Are you people beyond the sense of normalcy? This guy supposedly, quote unquote, is a billionaire and he's asking you for money? Can you say the word, ladies and gentlemen out there that support him? Stupid, stupid. That's what I want to say.
I mean, two things come to mind here is that if you're asking for people of a different political persuasion to you to agree with you politically because something they thought was bad isn't happening anymore, I don't think you should hold your breath on that one. But on the other part of it here, as much as you may not like the previous president and his current campaigning efforts, I would be incredibly surprised if there wasn't a fundraising message involved in literally everything I've gotten, because yes, I get way more emails than I ever want to get from all sides that we talk about here on the political spectrum, but there has not been a one that has not included some kind of fundraising message, because honestly, that is the biggest use that I think, not necessarily ultimately electorally, but we're talking about any national organizations such as, the National Republicans, all of those kind of committees and such. Fundraising is their raison d'etre, the reason they exist, the only real focus, and purpose that they have is to raise money. So for him, still allying with them, at least for now and for the foreseeable future, it seems like fundraising is his primary focus. And why I do remain a little bit dubious. I know that we even have some on our air talking about that, the run there's an announcement totally coming soon. I feel like every week there's talk about another, definitely an announcement coming up here. I'm going to be very surprised if there is an announcement, at least this year. Maybe once we get into 2023, honestly, maybe well into 2024, potentially not an announcement of an actual next run, except for maybe some ego purposes, essentially, because otherwise the potential, and you got to raise us money so we can make it happen, that's the biggest and best use for other candidates that can be done by the former president right now.
Well, let me say this. And he said it, the Donnie Dotor doofus. He said, I really love the poorly educated. Are you people listening to that? All you live in trailer houses and can't even afford a glass of water, and you still want to cough up money for this guy that's a supposed billionaire? That's where I don't get it, Andrew. Okay, yeah. Go ahead with the campaign contribution. But when you got something like this is off the wall, Andrew. Totally off the wall. This is wrong. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, fair enough. And tell your opinion on that. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
All right, then.
All right, talk with you soon there. I mean, really, you talk about a lot of these things and the possibilities of them, but I mean, seriously, you point to me something that has been a pretty consistent through line in this entire lead up to 2024, as much as that kind of pains me to say because I'm still focused on 2022, but 2024 at the very least is in the background or the back of the mind of everyone involved or being a part of this. So that much of a focus, that's a pretty consistent plot line that has been happening this entire time, is the fundraising. Because sure, you have to have like candidates that are doing things people actually want for the most part, and the reason we focus on policy, but it can still make quite the difference for any level of campaigning. And honestly, probably gets more important the higher level you get is the money being spent so that the message can be further put out there, the ads put out. I mean, look at our community. Again, we're a bad example of a good voting community, but the fact that people tend to vote for what names they know, it's not present in other communities. It's just incredibly pleasant there. Mark Williams saying, Mark Twain said it's easier to fool someone than it is to make them realize they've been fooled. Oh, that's quite a statement to unpack, honestly, on its own here. But tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. We'll get into more of these comments. Don't worry, if you left your comment, we'll get into what we can squeezing in there. If you're on the line, stay there because we're going to be taking more calls coming out of this break. So in any case, got to take that top of the hour news break. So coming back after the news and this quick break here with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is moving slow right now from Geronimo over to the 54 Patriot with 7-minute delays. Stop and go traffic there. I-10 westbound at Mesa, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. On the 54 Patriot northbound at Cassidy, you got another stall that's blocking the right side. And an accident reported. Police are responding to a crash at Lee Trevino southbound at Rojas. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From rising crime, rising costs, and shortages of essential goods, New Mexico's hard-working families are hurting. Congresswoman Yvette Harrell is working with local leaders and local law enforcement to care for our communities and keep all New Mexico families safe. Last year, Yvette Harrell introduced the POWER Act, legislation designed to increase U.S. fuel production and restore America's energy independence by blocking Biden from banning energy leases on federal lands without congressional approval. Congresswoman Harrell put New Mexico families first by introducing the PAWS Act, keeping Title 42 in place to protect vulnerable border communities. And with crime on the rise, Harrell gave law enforcement the tools they need to catch dangerous criminals and work to return control to local police departments, not the federal government. For more information on Congresswoman Yvette Harrell's efforts to keep New Mexico families safe and secure, visit harrell.house.gov. Paid for with official funds from the Office of Yvette Harrell.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable.
In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. John Travolta is paying tribute to his Grease co-star, Olivia Newton-John, following her death. Taking to Instagram, Travolta said he will see her down the road. Newton-John died today at the age of 73 after a lengthy battle with breast cancer. Another round of primaries is on tap ahead of November's crucial midterm elections. Lisa Taylor reports.
Contests are set Tuesday in Minnesota, Connecticut, Wisconsin, and Vermont. There's a lot of action in Wisconsin with closely watched primaries in the race for governor and attorney general. Democrats and Republicans in Vermont are scrambling to put forth their best candidates to replace retiring Democratic Senator Pat Leahy. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Alex Jones' text messages will be turned over to the House January 6th committee. CNN reports about 2 years' worth of messages will be handed over to the panel by the attorney who represented two Sandy Hook parents who sued Jones and won in a civil trial last week. A coroner is releasing the cause of death for multiple people who died in a Pennsylvania house fire. A total of 10 died from smoke inhalation in Nescopic, ranging in age from 5 to 79. Officials are investigating what started the fire in the town near Wilkes-Barre. The state fire commissioner called the incident profoundly saddening. Texas is now experiencing one of the hottest summers on record, and it comes as the surge of illegal immigration goes on. Border Congressman Henry Cuellar says asylum seekers are collapsing from heat exhaustion.
There's been an increase of deaths. There's less rescues, more deaths.
The Democrat says the trend will continue as record numbers of illegal immigrants are shuttled across the border by the cartels. Many are abandoned in the South Texas brush country. Volkswagen is recalling over 1,000 of its 2016 vehicles over concerns about a defective airbag part. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Consumer confidence in the housing market is hitting an 11-year low. Fannie Mae revealed just 17% of folks surveyed last month said it's the right time to purchase a home. It hasn't been that low since 2011. This comes as inflation and high mortgage rates are pricing many home buyers out of the market. Today's the deadline to request an absentee ballot for New York's August 23rd primary election. Sarah Lee Kessler has the details.
You can ask online, by fax, or by mail for an absentee ballot, but you've got to get your request in today. There are several key congressional and state Senate races. The most hotly contested is the Democratic primary battle in Manhattan, with Jerry Nadler and Carolyn Maloney, who've served together in Congress since 1993, facing off against each other because of redrawn congressional district lines. Absentee ballots likely to determine the outcome because so many Manhattanites are away in August. Primary day is August 23rd, with early voting beginning August 13th.
A climber's body is now recovered from Mount Hood. Michael Kastner reports from Oregon.
In March, 34-year-old Pradnaya Mohite was climbing the mountain with a friend when they both fell. Mohite died and her climbing partner suffered critical injuries. It was too dangerous for rescuers to recover Mohite's body due to avalanche risks. Conditions improved by August, and Portland Mountain Rescue was able to reach her body and bring it down the mountain.
French marine wildlife experts say time is running out for a beluga whale that's stranded in the River Seine. The 13-foot-long whale is swimming between two locks in a basin about 50 miles north of Paris after wandering into the river and swimming upstream from the English Channel last Tuesday. Rescuers are afraid the whale might be dying. They injected it with vitamins over the weekend in hopes of reviving its appetite and strength enough to swim back to the channel. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance at $1,000 and a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword music to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's music to 200-200.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Do we need more business people in politics? I'll ask Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, a successful businessman, that question. Listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday and throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development, the El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
The future of audio is here today, and you can hear it on the iHeartRadio app. It's everything audio in one easy-to-use, completely free app. That means streaming music, radio, and podcasting, everything you love to listen to, right at your fingertips, whenever you want it. So who needs a time machine? You can step into the future today. All you have to do is download the free, easy-to-use iHeartRadio app now.
iHeartRadio.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Even if you're not wanting to comment that much and really, happy to sit back, I would encourage you to look at some of these comments here. The Facebook, Talk El Paso, and YouTube are probably some of the most active here, including a rousing discussion of the effects of alcohol on the body and scientific study therein going on between RJ and Kathy Godry, with some other chiming in there as well, such as Jesse Garza. But a whole lot more going on there in all of the ways. Anyway, there's not a bad place for you if you're getting at us and want to chime in with it, as we also have that phone line open. Again, that number to dial if you want to chime in that way, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. So got a couple calls on the line there we'll definitely be getting to here, and also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Matt Olson, Ed Clore, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes, including at least some singing of 99 beers on the wall, and discussion about too many artillery shells close to others. Calvin William owning up, as I appreciate, saying that while the quote, "It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled," is often attributed to Mark Twain, there's no evidence that the author actually ever wrote that phrase. I think there's one that I have been known to quote, maybe erroneously myself, of, "I've never wished death upon a man, but there have been many obituaries I've read with great pleasure," or something along those lines anyway. And it gets a little apocryphal after a while on the idea of it. Well, anything can be attributed to Mark Twain, right? So I don't think he's around to discredit you on that, much like quotes on the internet should never be trusted. That great line from Abraham Lincoln. Anyway, some more of the comments that come here. Jesse Carson saying, "Frankie sounds too rich for me. He can't relate to the working class." And I tried to put them up on screen as they came up, but a whole lot of comments on the idea of, well, seriously, the amount of people saying that, okay, sure, gas may come down slightly, but it's nowhere near $2 a gallon, or it's not down 30 cents, it's up $2. A lot of commentary also going on there. So again, if you want to chime in, more than welcome to. But otherwise, let's get on with more of those calls here. Again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM is the number to call. And we do have Ben on the east side with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, I hope you had a good weekend.
Yeah, you as well. Hope so. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to ask Frankie a question.
Mm-hmm.
If he's listening, maybe we'll talk about this tomorrow. He says the price of gasoline is down, and this is true, but why is the price of gasoline decreased?
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any new refineries been activated or built?
Not knowing for sure, I'm going to say no to that one. But
in oil supplies being supplied by Saudi Arabia, domestic suppliers, Are we getting an increased amount of oil from Iran, Russia, Mexico, Venezuela? I'd like to know: are we completely draining our strategic oil reserve? Why is the price of gasoline coming down? Everybody's sitting there saying how wonderful it is, and I agree, it's great. Especially in El Paso, I mean, we're for some reason or other we've got a road degrease, but I want to know why. Don't you?
Yeah, and I know at least in part to most of your questions rhetorically put forth, I'm sure, but to most of the questions, the answer is no. With OPEC, referring to Saudi Arabia there, the answer was slightly, but nowhere near what I think the Biden administration had won. I kind of mentioned this a few weeks back, at least a couple of weeks at this point anyway, of what was the wholesale oil price had seen not quite a precipitous, but a decently steep drop recently, and that usually is a lagging indicator of what then might be happening with the gas prices, or the gas prices lag behind that more accurately. So there are some economic forces going on here, but why it has suddenly changed here, I mean, there's some reasonable questions to be asked, certainly.
Yeah, I think there's a real big question there. But anyway, another thing I would like to find out, and I'm not a real estate mogul and everything like that, and but I'm just wondering, UMC is asking for $365 million to build a building, and right now, if I went out and tried to price building a house, most people would look at me and say, "Are you crazy? We can't." The supplies are down, inflation is ridiculous. Are we going to set a price at $365 million, or is that going to be just an absolute price? We're never going to raise that, and especially if inflation or supplies don't end up getting better. Right now, do we take bids on things that, for building supplies and everything at the prices they have now? $365 million. Where did that price come from?
Well, and I think just to make sure we're correct about it and talking about it in the right way, I believe that the number being mentioned right now is 345, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that for you, just to make sure we're talking about it accurately. Yeah, 345 is the current amount, but it's kind of an answer to your question, but farther, almost more a continuation of your question. Most of the documentation, including the actual language of the vote that will be taken once we're past this, countdown period that we're currently in for that initially 60 days coming up in mid-September or early to mid-September, the language, to my understanding, if I'm recalling it correctly, was more on the order of an issuance of up to $400 million. I think that 345 amount is being considered as the initial issuance, what they are expecting, but pretty big but there by my reading of the orders and the potential way that they could be issued if, just considering the trajectory where we're on, if it goes through as UMC is essentially lobbying the public for, it could be an issuance of up to $400 million. So a lot of the questions you're asking there about what happens if, other cost overruns or things don't get locked in, all those kind of things, is that is to an extent accounted for in the way it's actually written, that yes, they are immediately asking for that $345 million and change, but that there's the potential for it to go up to $400 million.
So is that going to be a cap at $400 million? And last obligation bonds and everything, like the one for the Mexican Cultural Center, they put a price on it, and then all of a sudden, when they tried to build what they said they were going to do, oh my God, we don't have enough money to do that. So we'll just build a little smaller place, or we'll do something else. I mean, is $400 million going to be the cap, or are they going to come back and say, oh, we don't have enough money, or we can't build what we want to, so we'll be happy at $400 million and we'll just build whatever we can? Or are they going to come back at us and say, golly, we need another $100 million? And $100 million, big deal in a city that is right now over $1 billion in debt.
And just as a finer point to be made there as well, we're talking about two of the different entities here that have their own tax rates being set. You're mentioning there with the 2012 quality of life bond and going things into like the Mexican American Cultural Center. That's from the city, and this money coming out, of course, from the hospital district, but approved through county commissioners, so the county side of things. So even necessarily these same balance sheets, the money we're talking about here wouldn't necessarily go on to that one, though, of course, is obviously an amount this community and the residents who live here, as being the constituents of their government, will be on the hook for. So, yeah, it's just...
it's coming out of my pocket.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
not coming out of these commissioners' pockets. They'll be long gone probably by that time. It doesn't make any. I mean, I'd like to have absolutes. I mean, if you're going to put out a bond issue like this, let's talk about caps. Let's talk about how much we can get, and let's talk about, is it realistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we've got some of these like petition efforts going on and other things, because of the concern that comes with it. And we'll probably have more on that for y'all in coming weeks. But in any case, my expectation to your main assertion or question there about, okay, if we do run up to that 400 million, I think that the impetus, at least my expectation is anyway, for them to then probably go up to that 400 million if they have to with cost overruns, or maybe just, well, we've got it, might as well do it if it's technically authorized. And I think they would think, I would hope anyway, long and hard before then coming back for it further, because at the very least, they would have to go through this whole process again of asking Commissioners Court, starting that minimum period. I mean, I think the minimum it would be 45 days, but I would be surprised if then commissioners, if they are being asked for more, would say, no, we're not getting you off the hook with any less than 60, but they'd also have to do the outreach again. So I have expectations, but I've been known to be surprised as well.
Yeah, you've got a lot more faith in our government than I ever will.
Fair enough.
And lastly, but not least, let's go, Brandon.
All right. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, I have faith in it, because I believe people should be involved in it. I have faith in the average person, which might be misplaced as well, because when it comes to most government individuals, I will trust them about as far as I can throw them. And as those organizations get larger, there tend to be more people on them, and my strength doesn't go that much further. I'll say that. But in any case, the ability of people to deal with it and understand it, I'm always going to be in favor and have faith in the ability of the average person to really take the reins and be in charge of this, and not just say, well, someone else, I'm sure, will understand and deal with it, because I think that's more than a little bit of how we've gotten into some of these situations here. Tell you what, we are well due past a break right now. I know we've gotten in depth on some subjects here, but we'll keep doing that here in the next segment. So if you're on the line, stay there. Otherwise, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot more comments that have come in as well. Those and more coming up after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is moving slow right now from Geronimo over to the 54 Patriot with 7-minute delays. Stop-and-go traffic there. I-10 westbound at Mesa, a stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. On the 54 Patriot northbound at Cassidy, you got another stall that's blocking the right side. And an accident reported. Police are responding to a crash at Lee Trevino southbound at Rojas. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you love being an American, then listen to the best storytelling podcast in the country, Red Pilled America, a weekly storytelling show that tackles the tough topics corporate media mocks. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean. Mike, gotta go.
Eee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Today on Hey Culligan, soft water, cleaner environment. What do you say, Greg?
Hey Culligan, are you saying if I have a Culligan high-efficiency water softener, I'm also helping the environment?
It sounds like you're saying it, Greg, and yes, you are, because with the Culligan high-efficiency water softener, you'll use less detergent, soap, and harsh chemicals, and that's good for the planet.
Now you're saying it.
You bet I am, Greg. Soft water and a cleaner environment is already on the way. Let us help you out with a free in-home water test from a local Culligan water expert at Culligan.com.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Plus, all those comments and all the things we go over there. Do have that phone line open and available, so if you want to squeeze in there, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. The only real difference, because I know sometimes people get frustrated not getting on the line, some people who are maybe able to comment more than most, tenacity is going to be the determining factor if you're able to get through or not, because willing to call back whenever a call becomes available. That kind of a thing is what makes the difference here. So it's up to you. That's why we provide all these ways to get into the issues about what affects us here in the Borderland, including over on the YouTube, specifically Kathy Codry chiming in about a friend who lives in Key West, Florida, and pays $1,000 less in taxes than El Paso. RJ saying that's amazing. Sometimes I wonder how mismanaged our tax dollars are being spent. I think that's a concern a lot of people share. During the last segment as well, Stephen Christopher chiming in that saying, I drive Uber Eats. This morning gas was $3.42. Now it's $3.79. That does hurt a little bit, and why, I can only imagine how much gas that is being tanked up by other things here, but a lot of other commentary coming in here. You can drop in those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Lorenzo Medina Jr., Matt Olson, Ed Clore, Blanco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. So if you want to chime in on any of those, you're more than welcome to. And a lot of commentary coming in there. So if you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. But again, that phone number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, as well as one more comment here. Mondo Moncada saying abolish the IRS. Not saying I disagree with you, but I can't, like the effort it'll take to put that in, you better be working on it already is all I'm saying, or have been for decades. Anyway, those phone lines here. We do have Andrew on the west side of the line with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. All elections are important, but I think this one, these midterms, is even more crucial, considering the bill that Biden's about to sign into law.
Which one are you referring to there?
The latest one, what is it, the Build Back Better, the one that Sinema and Manchin caved in on.
Oh, yes. Not infrastructure, though. Infrastructure has been some of the things related to that, yes, but I think it's more on the inflation reduction, if I'm thinking about the right one you're referencing there.
Yes, that's correct. But anyway, what people don't know is that the taxes on fossil fuels, this will include a $6.5 billion tax on natural gas production, 16.4 cents per barrel tax on crude oil and petroleum and imported petroleum products, and a $1.2 billion coal tax. Now, that also includes a 15% minimum tax on large corporations.
Yeah, I've heard some of these finer points here. Obviously, the focus and the long-stated agenda and goals of drawing down essentially fossil fuels and those focuses. I mean, it's not exactly something that they can, without catastrophe anyway, declare as, no, you can't use this anymore. But a death by a million cuts is a death nonetheless, I suppose.
Yes, well, folks, be prepared to see gasoline at $6 a gallon by the end of December of this year. Not to mention corporations engaging in layoffs. Okay, now my liberal friends will disagree with me out there, but you cannot tax an economy into prosperity. It's impossible.
Yeah, because it tends to be that prosperity. I mean, I remember back in the day during Bush 2 administration of there being that they sent out a mild stimulus check. I want to say it was about $300, and that had, a little bit of a jump in the economy, but otherwise it was pretty much eaten up and continued on. So even the idea of taxing and then putting it directly back into people's pockets, as much as the whole tax and spend, well, we are essentially turning the government into an economic churning engine, velocity of money, all those kind of phrases that get brought up here. I tend to be of the opinion that the idea of letting people keep more of their money and therefore they can spend it and do the things that perpetuate economic activity tends to be maybe ever so slightly better in the long run.
Yes, sir. Well, before Raul comes in on his daily news brief on Trump, I just wanted to say this, that when Trump was in office, I got quite a bit of a jump, even though in my take-home pay, even though I raised my federal withholding tax quite a bit. I still wound up with more take-home pay. Now, number two, with these local property tax increases, it doesn't just affect the price that you have to put out to the taxing the tax collector. Remember, with the value of your house goes up, you have to pay more insurance, and that also means a higher mortgage bill since you have to put more into equity.
That is true, and for those of us still on escrow on that, which is not a phrase that I ever thought I'd really have to get into, but life again takes us strange ways sometimes. The requirements on the, monthly payments on that, yeah, all of these tend to be commiserate things, but there's even still the possibility. I know El Paso matters a little bit more on some of the expectations for El Paso's home valuation coming out, I think, this week, if it wasn't recently-ish. Yeah, as of today, actually, average El Paso home valuation jumps nearly 20%, reappraisal likely next year. So it could even continue on that. So the certified numbers, the ones that I had been talking to y'all about coming out shortly, we'll probably get into more on this tomorrow, less the rest of the week as well. But yeah, 19.9%, let's just call it 20% to be good round figures here, rounding up, of valuations in El Paso just over last year to this year.
Yes. Well, anyway, like I said, you're going to see a big further increase in insurance premiums, and like I said, the money you have to put aside for the taxes. Also, concerning Frankie, wait till the gas goes up $6 a gallon. You're going to be crying in your beer, Frankie. But anyway. I digress, and I turn the mic back over to you, Andrew.
No, sure thing. Appreciate it. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. More will get onto the line here. I'll tell you what, I think we have time to squeeze in one more call before we hit that next break. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, some good news from the Biden camp. 10 million new jobs since he's been president. 3.6 unemployment rate, lowest in 50 years. It should be also remembered that he inherited a crashed economy and a divided nation from a traitorous moron president, okay? We've had an 86% drop in the COVID death rate. And again, the X called it a hoax. It was going to miraculously go away on its own. Biggest ever infrastructure bill passed. Trump talked about infrastructure every week for 4 years and didn't get it done. First gun safety bill in 30 years. For Medicare bulk purchasing, we should have been doing that a long, long time ago. It just shows the power of the pharmaceutical industry over the Republicans, none of which voted for that bill. Electoral college reform so that they don't try to steal another election again, like Trump tried to do with this 7-point plan that ended up with an attack on the Capitol. Statutory legislation of gay marriages. Restart of the U.S. microchip industry. So quite a bit of good news there. Now, on the other front, Dick Cheney again said that in our 246-year history, there has never been an individual who's a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election. He lost big. I know it. He knows it. And deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Now, about 87,000 new IRS agents to be hired. You know what? Government costs money. To be the policeman of the world costs money. You know, it's an expensive proposition to provide for infrastructure for the largest economy in the world. And as a matter of fact, the countries with the lowest taxes are the poorest countries. And conversely, the countries with the highest taxes have the highest standards of living. Now, the IRS chief says that $1 trillion goes uncollected every year because the IRS hasn't had the people and the technology it needs to enforce the existing law. So I'm a business owner. I have a couple of businesses. I do my own income taxes. And over the almost 40 years that I've been in business, I've never been audited. And it's because I'm not trying to get over on the IRS like some people try to. And I've had some differences in terms of the amounts that I've owed over the years. And about half the time, those differences were resolved in my favor. So I heard the right wingers today talking, Buck and Clay, and trying to scare average Americans that they have to now fear for the government coming and auditing them. That is total nonsense and BS, right-wing BS, you know.
I mean, you're entitled to your opinion on that if your taxes have worked well. But let me just say, the idea, okay, let's put this two ways and see how people have an inherent reaction to it. One way to put it would be more IRS agents, more fair taxing, and more people paying their fair share. Going into those kind of lines of talk that have often come out of this, you might find more people than the next one I'm going to say in favor of that. But you put it down to, and more audits are going to be happening. I'm pretty sure I could hear the pucker factor coming from here, kind of a general whooshing sound everywhere, because I don't think in any way, shape, form are people going to be like, oh, there are more audits happening, because also the fact, I mean, as much as there are the many phrases of like tax the rich, this is not exactly going to be something focused just on that. I mean, this comes in very much the same vein, I am of the opinion of what has also been being talked about when it came to the, reporting of deposits more than $600. And yes, there's been a lot of back and forth on that, but the greater information gathering on the average American, as opposed to as much as you like to talk about, like the plutocrats and the people with the high incomes here, this is by no means going to be a select enforcement division focused on just those. This is going to come down on everyone. And sure, people have been doing, malfeasance, ne'er-do-wells, and other ways of gaming the system, but even things that have maybe been doing for a while now. Again, audits is not exactly a phrase that I think anyone is really very much happy about. And I think what a lot of people really wanted, if you really want to get down to the idea of, yes, things cost money, and taxation is not so much the way they gather the money as the way that they ensure the confidence in what the money actually stands for. Another discussion entirely, I'll grant you. But I think people, if they really were of that persuasion of wanting to see the whole fair share, all of those points of rhetoric, they would want to see maybe a change in the actual taxing scheme as opposed to a ratcheting up of the enforcement as it currently is on everyone across the board. So as much as you may be in favor of it, let's just say if you're expecting there to be a swell of response behind it as well, people going, yeah, and celebrating it, I wouldn't hold my breath there. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now. So appreciate the point and the call, and some finer points coming in on there as well. So do appreciate it. We got that phone line open as we do at this point during the show. So if you're wanting to get on the line, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you're on the line, stay there. Otherwise, if you want to call in, again, that number, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 news update. A 21-year-old man is dead following a shooting. That's according to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office tells CBS 4 Cisco Rodriguez died from a gunshot wound yesterday morning at the hospital's of Providence East campus in Far East El Paso. His death is under investigation by the Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit. Investigators have yet to release any other details at this time. And a man is in custody after police received reports that someone with a gun was making threats at a church in Far East El Paso. The Catholic Diocese of El Paso tells CBS 4 this happened yesterday morning during Mass at St. Francis Xavier Caprini on Vista del Sol near Loop 375. The suspect has not yet been identified by police. Of course, you can count on CBS 4 to update you on both these stories, both on air and online, as more information comes into our newsroom. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is slow, but not as bad as it was last half hour between Geronimo and the Patriot with less than 5-minute delays. I-10 westbound at Mesa, stalled semis blocking the left shoulder. Stanton downtown at East Paisano, an accident reported. And there's a crash reported George Dieter northbound at Montana Avenue, slowing traffic there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Monsoon season continues with showers and storms in the forecast each and every afternoon. Expect a mostly cloudy sky tonight with a 40% chance for scattered showers and storms, with overnight lows settling into the lower to middle 70s by early tomorrow morning. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a slight drop in our daytime highs, plus if this active pattern continues through the upcoming weekend. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Harley-Davidson is an iconic American brand with an iconic American backstory. To hear it, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Staples has what you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Now, Crayola 10-count markers and 12-count colored pencils are just 99 cents each, and Staples 1-subject notebooks are just 35 cents each. In-store only, offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in on this. Honestly, I wasn't planning to talk about the IRS that much today, but these things often take a little bit of a turn here because obviously, 80,000 plus more IRS auditors and agents here. That would, according at least to the New York Post anyway, double the amount of Americans audited each year. Again, that pucker factor is significant there. And the thing about Schadenfreude, that you appreciating bad things happening to other people and getting pleasure out of it, only works if it's only happening to other people. So some more comments coming in, including Ion Grimm saying, Raul, please remember to let us know when one of those new 87,000 IRS agents comes knocking on your door. And as well as someone like Jesse Garza commenting on the ratio here. Essentially, Amira Kalman saying 80% of adults are individuals living paycheck to paycheck. More agents will result in the political weaponization of the IRS. I know there's some concern about it out there, but I think just even if it were to be, it's only going to be used against those against me. Even if someone does have that thought out there, the tools that are used and put into place by one political party can just as easily be used by the next one the next time they come into power here. So if you dislike the idea of that being possible, maybe, just maybe, this is a power that shouldn't exist or shouldn't be happening. Caller during the break also brought up the point about the IRS as being reported on going to be bigger than, and again, some other organizations such as I think the Washington Free Beacon, pointing out that this will make the IRS bigger than the Pentagon, State Department, FBI, and Customs and Border Patrol combined. At least I do believe when it comes to hiring and staffing there, which is a way to put it here. Mando Moncada putting on the Twitter, born free, taxed to death. Not exactly a great way I want to live anyway, but let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now, we do have Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Andrew, thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
I wanted to pick up on a little something that we talked about last week about like the increase in crime, and we talked a little bit about Giuliani in New York and everything, and I think a gentleman kind of misunderstood what I was talking about when it comes to enforcing different crimes. And
sure,
my point was that, let's say someone is willing to commit an armed robbery, and they take that person and they release him back on the same street with no bail laws and those kinds of things, then that person is more likely to be the type of person who would also use that gun and maybe commit a murder or shoot somebody. And those are the kinds of people that we don't really want on the streets. I never wanted to imply that someone should go to jail for, jumping over the turnstiles to get in a subway or something like that.
Sure.
So I think that person misunderstood what I was saying. And I also am not a great fan of the laws that were like stop and frisk.
Right.
I think there's some constitutional problems there, unlawful search and seizure. And I think the only way that you should be living like that is if the people in the community or the area that you're going into are willing to willfully submit themselves to that kind of check, just like we do if we go into a concert or something. You understand you're not going to be able to take in any weapons or something in that kind of situation. I don't think you should be able to stop and frisk whoever goes in there. Anyways, I also wanted to bring up the Russia situation, because you mentioned it last week, that WNBA player who got almost the maximum sentence, and I almost guarantee that the Kremlin called over there and said, give her the almost maximum sentence so that we have more leverage in order to do a prisoner swap. And so that gives them a little bit more leverage. So this administration would have to release a higher up, I guess, level of criminal to get the WNBA player back. I suspect that's what the game the Kremlin is playing. And I think it's also a good point that if there are people who legitimately only had a possession of marijuana charge here in the United States, those people shouldn't be in jail either. But that's usually not the case. Usually they're drug dealers and stuff who go to prison in the U.S.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of saying there should not be any laws against this. I mean, low-level possession, I think we're on more or less the right trajectory, at least here in El Paso, where we've done still against the law, but it is now finable, as opposed to keeping some very serious, levels of punishments in place for those doing the traffickers, as you're referencing there, because the people that are actively profiting off this they got a much different level of involvement here. And just to be clear about it, stop and frisk, not in favor of, just because as much as you may not like, or you might like who it's being focused on, the idea of there being any violation of rights and it being allowed in any circumstances can still definitely blow back on you. And as much as, the whole Brittany Griner situation, the WNBA player we're talking about there is, there's definitely geopolitics involved in it. There is some aspect of, what she brought with her there that I'm not saying that she's totally innocent, but this thing definitely has some absolute, the geopolitics have taken over whatever may have happened in this case on its own merits.
Yeah, she normally would have gotten a lesser sentence if she weren't, if the countries involved weren't the countries involved.
Exactly.
The other thing I wanted to kind of agree with you on, and just maybe put it a different way, is that the problem with the tax code, the way things are, is essentially the lobbyists who are in control of basically how the tax laws are written. They are able to favor the large corporations, these big organizations with a lot of money, a lot of power, and they essentially end up writing the tax laws. And what I think people like Raul get wrong on this is that the more government, the more IRS, the more tax laws that you have, the more chance there is for it to be corrupted. So, if the Republicans are in power, then they're going to get their buddies their tax break. And then if you get the Democrats in power, they're going to give their buddies the tax breaks. And then the IRS is going to be enforcement arm of the political party that is in power, rather than having equal justice under the law, so to speak. So what conservatives have been pushing for a long time is a tax code that is so simple that you apply it across the board, and there's no way you can, skirt it or go around it or write or have your lobbyists write certain tax codes into the bills that will give them a break. It would be so simple that you could just apply it across the board, and it would be fair. They call them the fair tax and the flat tax and all these different proposals, but that was more the idea as opposed to the type of system that we have now. And I think you were trying to get that across before when you were talking about our complaint is more about the tax scheme,
right?
Or the way it's enforced is easily corrupted, I would say.
Yeah, the idea of, I know it's come up a lot here. I'm not 100% on board with that being the implementation here, but even the idea of a, politicized and therefore party weaponized tax system is more than a little bit concerning to, even just in the base concept, to any reasonable observer, because anyone saying, no, that'll be fine. I'm going to tell you right now that their consideration in the back of their head is that because I'm in charge of it or it benefits me currently. But again, as I keep coming back to, it's just a very core concept I have. If there's a power that you love because you can use it against those you disagree with politically, but you would be terrified if someone of that political persuasion were in charge of it, just maybe that power shouldn't exist.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see if a new bill comes out that's pushing green energy, the solar panels, the wind power, and all that stuff. I'm curious, along party lines, who is invested in what when they're in Congress and the Senate. Are they invested in these companies that have solar power, wind power? And then when the Republicans are in power, are they invested in the fossil fuel companies? It's like that. It shouldn't work that way. That the tax code should apply equally across the board. There shouldn't be subsidies for anything, and in the best technology will win out in the end.
I hope that'll be the case, but as has often been the circumstance, like we've talked about here, quality doesn't necessarily win over quantity, and by quantity, I'm referring to campaign donations.
And my final point is a lot of these types of taxes and a lot of the implementation of, going against fossil fuels and stuff has to do with the belief that the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going to catastrophically affect the climate. And it is almost like a religion in the sense that, if it gets a little bit cold outside, people say it's climate change. If there's a heat wave, it's climate change. And it's almost like back in the old days when they would go after witches because the witches supposedly were controlling the weather. But now the witch is you because you drive your car to work every day. And it's like the original sin of living on this planet, and we're all to blame. Therefore, we all have this original sin. But a lot of their, the projections that they've given are false. Just last week, I saw that the coral reefs around Australia are growing, and they're at their highest level in 36 years. But if you look at the scientific literature and the peer-reviewed journals and all this stuff for, a couple decades, they've been claiming that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going to kill all the coral and it's all going to die and it's all our fault. And in reality, it was probably pesticides and other things. And now the coral reefs doing great once they cleaned up the water and everything. So I think focusing too much on carbon dioxide is a mistake, and we should be focused more on trash in the oceans, pesticides, clean water, clean air, and not focus so much on carbon dioxide. I think in the future, we're going to realize it was a big waste of money and a big mistake.
A good comment that came in here on that point was Mando Moncada saying, I don't know about climate change, but we are polluting the planet beyond recognition. I guess part of the problem that comes with, the pseudo-religious aspects you're talking about here, another way to put it with that idea is that it almost becomes a tragedy of the commons kind of thing to say, well, everything is bad, because if it's everyone's fault, then it's kind of no one's fault now in it. There's not like specific things we can point to, such as, a pipe with, chemical runoff running into the Great Barrier Reef, as opposed to, well, it's really everyone's problem. So really, unless we're doing something on everyone, there's nothing individually we should do, right? That's kind of the upshot that often comes with those kind of discussions, whether you believe in it or not.
Yeah, they'll point to things like some people got hit by lightning near the White House recently.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next paragraph you see is like, oh, and there's going to be more lightning strikes because of climate change. It's like, well, if you actually look at the stats, lightning strikes killing people has dropped dramatically over decades of time. And it's the lowest it's been in decades. And so, but, someone got hit by lightning, must be climate change, or, someone got hit by a car, must be climate change. It's to the point of ridiculousness. I just see clown faces everywhere.
Fair enough here. Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thanks.
All right. I think we are overdue for that next break right now. Coming out of this break, get to what we can, tell you what we got coming up for you on the show, and close it out as we do. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Some of the comments over on our social media as well. So stay tuned for that and more after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, Gateway Boulevard westbound and McRae Boulevard, an injury accident reported. Something slow in traffic on the 10 eastbound between Airway and Viscount. Heavy traffic and 5-minute delays. Stanton downtown at East Paisano Drive, an accident reported. And on Loop 375, Memorial Highway southbound at Iron Medics, a truck is blocking the right shoulder, slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Staples count books and number 2 pencils are just 50 cents, and 2 pocket paper folders at just 25 cents each. In-store only offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over.
or even,
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Imagine everything you need in one place, all within reach at your fingertips. Welcome to your Appy Place, the all-new Staples Connect app, where you can save money with just a tap. Exclusive app-only savings and all your rewards in one place. No searching, just saving. Now, download the Staples Connect app and get $10 off your next $50 in-store purchase. Download the Staples Connect app today and find your Appy Place. Offer ends 12/31, in-store only. See app for full offer details.
Heads up, Texas.
So you don't rear end me when I'm at a stoplight.
So I can ride my bike safely.
So I don't have to write you a ticket. Heads up, Texas, because driving and using your phone is a bad combination. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of stuff we've covered, a lot of ground we've gone over, and a lot of stuff we got working on for you here on the program, including talking a little bit more about voting, what some of the possibilities are for this coming election, a little bit more broadly, but then, well, just the level of interest that is being seen as we are in that, well, 90 plus, just over 90 days, let's call it that, countdown to the next election. Election day itself, early voting coming sooner than that here, but as some are mentioning shows here as well, yes, I do try to put on a good show here as Don. Yeah, Maria Coleman and some others saying that, yes, it does appear that there has been an FBI raid either ongoing or maybe still going on at this point here of the Mar-a-Lago residents here. So that coming in from our national news partners as well. A little bit closer, a little bit since the top of the hour here, about half an hour in, coming done here. So Trump himself issuing a statement from Mar-a-Lago saying that the home was under siege, raided and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. So I am sure more of that will be coming up with our other hosts and topics here. But let's get to at least one more call before we end the show here. We do have Marco in Central. Marco, we got about a minute.
Thanks, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make it real sweet and short. Especially, it's fitting that they pass the bill and then they go and harass our president in exile. But that's fine. You know, they'll have to take it to the Supreme Court and they'll expedite that very quickly, I promise you. So I don't think the Democrats are going to get what they want. But I want everyone to remember this. The misery that you feel in the next couple of months will be all because of the Democrats. And when you're sitting there going, why am I paying so much? I thought they were going to tax the corporations. Yeah, they did. And they passed that on to you. They will never pay because you will suffer and you will pay more. And then those corporations will give back to the Democrats. And that's how it works because they hate your guts. They want you to suffer. And the more you suffer, you're going to sit there and going, who did this to me? Why am I in this situation? Well, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is look in the mirror and see who voted for the Democrats. It was you. And you will suffer.
I mean, you get what you vote for is a very persuasive phrase. And at least one other comment that came in between the break there. One person saying anyone who's bringing up the idea of a greater economy, he has no idea what they're talking about. But we'll have to leave it there for today. So thank you for the point in the call. We're out of time here for this program. So I want to thank everyone who did call in, comment, participate in the show. We will do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, Gateway Boulevard westbound and McRae Boulevard, an injury accident reported. Something slow in traffic on the 10 eastbound between Airway and Viscount. Heavy traffic and 5-minute delays. Stanton downtown at East Paisano Drive, an accident reported. And on Loop 375, Memorial Highway southbound at Iron Medics, a truck is blocking the right shoulder, slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job in ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Former President Trump says his home in Florida was raided by the FBI. In a statement, Trump says his Mar-a-Lago home was under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. He goes on to say this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate. 4-time Grammy Award winner Olivia Newton-John is dead at the age of 73 after losing a battle against breast cancer that lasted decades. In 1980, she had the #1 song of the year with Physical, which showed a different side of Olivia.
It's hilarious because that was so naughty in its time and so nothing now.
She recorded her first single, Till You Say You'll Be Mine, for Decca Records in England in 1966 when she was just 18. She released her first solo album here in the U.S., If Not For You, in 1971, written by Bob Dylan, which became her first international hit. All 3 Georgia men involved in killing Ahmaud Arbery will face lengthy prison sentences.